Okay, this is the notes and homework for section 8.2 on percent problems. Okay, and this is the next kind of step up in this chapter on fractions, proportions. We're trying to just hit a lot of just little items as we wrap up this semester. Um, all of these problems, these tend to be very, very confusing problems, and a lot of it's just because it's hard to interpret in the different ways these questions are worded what they're looking for. Okay, now you need to understand that in each one of these equations, there are three components. And if you understand what the three components are, okay, then you can create an equation and you can solve it no matter what component you're trying to find. Okay, so first of all, you have to have some whole unit. You have to have a whole. Okay, so it might be a number, it might be an amount, okay, represented by a number, but something that represents the total. Okay, now the other thing is you have to have a part of that whole, some piece of it. Okay, and then you have to have a value that tells you how the two relate, and that will be your percent. Okay, all questions have those three components. If you're able to take those and decipher those into an equation, then you're going to be able to solve. Well, here's the relationship. The part, the piece, will always equal the percent times the whole or the total. Okay, so once you can label those three pieces, then you can, and they're going to be in one of two orders. The equal sign and the part are either going to be on the left or the part's going to be on the right with the equal sign, but the percent and the whole, okay, always got to go together. They always have to go together. Okay, now another thing to remember, the percent has to be written as a decimal when you do the work. And they won't do that. They're going to give it to you as a decimal, so you're going to have to change it. So, for example, when you're changing 25% to a decimal, that becomes 0.25. Okay, so you always move the decimal place 2 points to the left. Okay, so let's look at some, so in some cases, they're going to ask you what's the percent, what's the part, and what's the whole. Okay, so it's just a matter of what am I looking for? And that's where I'm going to put the variable. Okay, so let's use, I'm going to say the whole is represented by B, the part is represented by A, and the percent is P. Okay, now most books call B is the name for the base, but the base amount is your whole amount, your total. Okay, the A stands for just the amount that we're finding. So that's the notation that a lot of textbooks like to use, but I want you to know what they represent. So we'll use A, B, and P, and we'll set up some equations and see if we can solve them. Okay, so this is what your worksheet looks like if you haven't looked at it yet. Okay, let's look at number 3. 1, 2, and 3 say what percent? They're asking you to find a percent. Okay, now, so I know that that's P. Now, like we said before, and here's the word of always means multiplication. Okay, and connected to P will always be your base. So this is P, this is B, this is A. So P times 55 equals 34. Okay, is where your equal sign is, always. Okay, when you see is, change it to an equal sign. When you see of, change it to a multiplication sign. Now, so if I know that P times 55 equals 34, to find P, I need to divide by 55. So if I take my calculator and 34 divided by 55 is 6181818, etc. So I'm going to call that, so P equals 0.618, and I'm going to change it to a percent, because that's what I'm looking for. I need to move it 2 places to the right, and they say they want the nearest tenth. So to the nearest tenth means I need to go 3 decimal places here before, and that's what I did. So this becomes 61.8%. Okay, let's go down to number 10. And again, number 10, I'm going to do some symbolizing here. So is my equal sign. Of is my multiplication sign. Here's my percent. So that means this has to be my base. So what am I trying to find? My amount. Fill in the numbers. 12% as a decimal is 0.12. And my base is 17.5. And they're both on the same side. So all I've got to do is multiply the two together. So I get A equals 2.1. Okay. Okay, let's see if they, on the back side, it's just more of the same. So let's look at number 19. Okay, I've done a problem where I've had to find P, the percent. I've done a problem where I've had to find A. This is number 19 is asking you to find what is B, what's the base, what was the total that I started with. Okay, so 16 inches is 35% of what? Again, is your equal sign. Of is your multiplication sign. So 16 equals 35% is 0.35 times, and again, remember what's attached to your percent. It's always going to be your base or your whole. Divide both sides by 0.35. And 16 divided by 0.35, I get 45.71. Okay. 24 is exactly the same kind of problem. Well, let's do 23. 23's got a different kind of percent. Okay. So this one might be a little bit interesting because of where the equals and the multiplication in this example here, I'm trying to find the amount again. Okay, so the amount equals 103% is 1.03 as a decimal, okay, times 127. Okay, now this is the only problem I've seen in these examples where your percent is bigger than 100%. What that's going to do is that's going to make your amount bigger than your total. Okay, and that's going to happen once in a while, but that's not generally the rule with these kinds of problems. So when I take 1.03 and then multiply that by 127, I get 130.81. Okay, so be careful. Okay, I guess number 22 also has a big percent. Okay, so that will also have a big A value there. But all of the remaining problems, okay, are going to fall into one of the three categories that I just explained to you. Are you trying to find the amount? Are you trying to find the base? Okay, or are you trying to find the percent? So look at what they're asking you to find, and then find the example and the ones that we just got done doing and match it up, and you should be able to go through and complete those other 20 questions. Okay, now, as I was saying here, this worksheet, I won't expect this worksheet here until next week, okay, meaning Friday the 24th. Okay, so keep that in mind. But I'm going to also probably tack on section 8.3 with that as well. So, like I said, communicate, send me an email if you're struggling still. This should kind of help a little bit with how I want you to do the problems, what's the easiest way to get some answers, but make sure you're showing your work. Okay, and again, if I can see what you're doing, then I can correct it. The test questions that you're going to get are going to come exactly off these examples that you've been seeing. So once I can get these graded and back to you, you'll have some things you can look at as you go through and do the test, because it's going to be all open notes on the stuff that you're doing. Okay, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.